Hello everyone, it is Andrew Wall here. We're going to be kicking off in about 15 minutes. I will just put myself on mute, but if anyone does have any questions throughout the session, please feel free to use the chat before we get started and message me any questions that you might have. Thanks, and see you in a few minutes. If you are in early and want to post any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A or the chat panel. I'll be happy to answer any questions in the chat before we kick off. Thanks. See you in a few. Minutes before our session kicks off, I want to thank those of you who came in early. I see a couple of names I recognize. Deborah, thank you for joining us. Hopefully those tips I gave you on Facebook have helped you grow your followers. And thank you the rest of you for dialing in early. Like I said, we'll be kicking off in just 5 more minutes here. It is Andrew Wall here. I hope you're having a good day. If there are not too many people here from Toronto today, I'm not that surprised. Yesterday was a pretty outstanding day. We had over 2 million people in our downtown core, apparently, with a mostly safe and fun experience for all. But today we're going to be talking about how to become a digital marketer with paid search, and specifically implementing paid search with Google AdWords. I am going to be running a couple of polls throughout the session. The first poll I'm going to run is just to see how many of you actually attended last week's session, because this is sort of a continuation on last week's poll or last week's session. And I want to have a feel for where everyone is, who attended last week, who might need a bit of a refresher on the high levels. Looks like we're about 50-50 split between those of you who attended last week and those who are new to the session. So let me not leave that up too long, because I think we've got about 80% of attendees. So I'm going to share the results of that. So as I said, we do have about a 50-50 split, 54 to 48%. So some of you are new to this. I will give a bit of a high level. I'll start the session with a high level overview of what Google AdWords is. In last week's session, we went over the different formats and the different sessions. A little background on who I am. My name is Andrew Wall. I'm a CPA, CMA. I have a practice here in Toronto called CPA for IT. I'm very active on digital marketing. I've done everything from Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, the whole 9 yards. I was just looking at our analytics of our Facebook ads, and it looks like we spent over $80,000 on Facebook, on Google ads. We spent over $80,000 experimenting and testing with this platform. So hopefully I have some experience and knowledge to share with you. I'm going to give you the tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. I've studied lots of different other webinars and sessions to try and learn how to optimize this for myself. As I mentioned in our last session, even if you're looking to hire an agency to run a Google Ads campaign for you, I do encourage everybody to get familiar with the process so that you can understand whether the agency is doing an effective job for you and know and understand what works and what doesn't work, because while there's some amazing agencies out there, there's also some crummy ones. And if you don't know the difference between what a good ad is and what a well-performing ad is, you might have an agency spending a lot of money without doing a lot of good for you. So let's break down our agenda here. My apologies, I got something caught in my throat today. So our agenda today is to break down a little bit about what Google AdWords is. But really, I want to get into the weeds. I want to open up the Google AdWords platform. So we're going to be diving right into the platform. I'll try to teach you how to create a search ad. Then we'll look at how to create a video ad. And then we're going to talk a little bit about remarketing and reporting, which are some really interesting things that are the sort of next level that you get to sort of as an intermediate Google AdWords person. So the difference between a search ad and a video ad, for those who are not familiar, we're basically talking Google versus YouTube. And there are some pretty big differences, basically branding versus moment of need. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we explain what Google AdWords is. So I think pretty much everyone has heard of what Google AdWords is. It's an advertising platform developed by Google where advertisers pay to display brief advertisements. And it is an auction-based platform, as most pay-per-click platforms are, which means the more competitive the keyword or key phrase is, the more that you are paying to rank highly on that keyword or key phrase. Now, Google AdWords is an amazing platform. It is probably one of the most effective platforms. It's got the widest reach. It's the largest website in the world. However, it is also the most widely adopted by businesses, accountants, bookkeepers, which means that because it is a bid-placed auction system, you are going to pay more than you are going to pay on other platforms like Facebook and Bing and other channels that we discussed last week. Now, the reason I wanted to start with Google AdWords is because I think it's still the greatest place to get started to get immediate results. SEO, which is a whole nother topic, which is search engine optimization, is really an essential component for your marketing strategy, but that can take time to build up awareness and to start being effective. The advantage that you have with Google AdWords is you turn on an ad and immediately you're going to start seeing results and people coming over to your website. Now, how effective those ads are and whether you're able to convert is really up to you and how you develop those ads. But it is a really great platform. And the reason it's such a great platform is because you're delivering on the needs of your potential customers. And Google has this great advertising campaign out there right now about delivering on needs. And they basically say there's I want to know moments, I want to go moments, I want to do moments, and I want to buy moments. So if you're able to connect with your customer at one of these moments of needs, this is going to be your absolute best opportunity to convert these people to a paying customer. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. Through Google. Today, we're going to talk about specifically paid advertisements, and we're going to be talking specifically about search advertisements. We're going to talk a little bit about remarketing and display advertisements. We're going to look at YouTube advertisements or video advertisements, which is a really great opportunity right now. And then we're going to try and wrap up, if we've got some time, on the different ways that you can do reporting and the ways that you can automate that reporting so that you can build, learn, and build, test, learn. And so what I want to do is really get into the weeds of what this platform is. But before we begin, I think it's important to give you a bit of a breakdown on the structure of how Google AdWords platform works. So at the top level, you have an account. This is the basic account that you would have if you have a Gmail account or anything like that. It's going to be tied to that account. But you do want to go and create a Google AdWords account. It's quite easy if you haven't done it yet. I have some instructions on my website on how to do that. Be happy to share that with you. It was also in the white paper that we put out earlier. We're not going to go into that now. I'm going to assume that you know how to create an account. The next thing that you have, the next level, is a campaign. And the campaigns can contain multiple ad groups, and multiple ad groups can contain multiple ads and multiple keywords. And you'll understand that better as we actually get into the program. But the big question that most people have is, well, when do I create a new campaign? When do I work within an existing campaign and add a new ad group, or not add a new ad within an existing campaign? And I think one of the best ways someone explained it to me is look at the hierarchy of your website and the way the hierarchy of your website is broken out. You might want to have a campaign about contacting you. You might want to have a campaign about you. You might want to have a campaign around content like your blogs. You might want to have a campaign around your services. And then I would even argue within your services, you probably want to break down and have an individual campaign for each level of service that you offer, or each product that you might offer, depending upon whether you're offering products and or services. Once you build those individual campaigns, anything that you have created within that campaign as far as budgets will tie into the actual ad groups. And then anything that you create within the individual ad groups, such as the keywords, will then tie into any ads within that ad group. Now, there are ways to override some preceding information that's come from the higher level, either the ad group or the campaign. We're not going to get into the weeds of that in today's session. I think for today's session, my goal is to really just try and keep it as simple as I possibly can, because this session is really geared for people who are just starting out, and it's not meant to be high level. So again, I'm going to launch one more poll here just to find out how many of you have experience with Google Ads. So let me launch that and just get a feel for how many of you have actually worked with the platform before, how many of it's new to you, so I can sort of adjust my pace. Okay, we've got about close to 80%. I like to close my polls when we hit about 80%. So we've got 85% of respondees, so let's launch that. And as you can see from the results, 20% of you have played around with a little bit. The majority of you, it's all new to. So I'm gonna try and keep my pace fairly slow today. I'll do my best to explain things as thoroughly as I can. There are going to be some sessions that we'll be skipping over because they are sort of more advanced topics. But by the end of this, you'll be able to create your very first ad. So we'll keep it nice and light. Unfortunately, there are about 13% of you who are very experienced with this. Hopefully, I'll be able to teach some of you that have experience with this some new tips and tricks that I've learned along the ways. So stay tuned. I think there will be some benefits to those of you who have even played with it in the past. Now I'm going to get up the actual ad platform and dive into that. But before I do that, let me share with you one really key tip that I like everyone who's playing with Google AdWords for the first time to be aware of. And that is that there is a coupon available to anyone who has never done a Google AdWords campaign before. If you just Google AdWords coupon, the very first link that you will find is this Google Ads official site AdWords coupon. And if you fill in this information with your email and tell them you're not a robot, you will go ahead and get the coupon, which is a great way to get started with a really basic campaign. So $100 is a great first stab at your first campaign. You might even be able to run 1 or 2 campaigns for that budget. So hopefully I'm delivering at least $100 of value to those of you who are brand new to it, which is about 67% of the people on the call today. And for the other 34% or 33%, I'm hoping that you haven't heard of this coupon and you'll still be able to make use of it. So let's dive into, like I said, the platform. So I'm gonna dive in here. Give me 1 second, I gotta get the right site up. So ignore the thing that says there's a new form of payment required. I've used another account that I have, which is just so that I can give you a very clean start. So this is what your page will look like when you first create your account. I have absolutely no campaigns, no ad groups, no ad extensions. This is a clean, fresh start, which I did want to show you guys how to create your ad from the absolute very beginning. So let's just take a look around this dashboard and see what we've got here, because it can be a little bit overwhelming. You've got search campaigns, video campaigns, so you can segregate between the 2 different types of campaigns. And again, we'll be diving into the video campaigns later, but I want to start with a search campaign, overviews, recommendations, which can be really helpful for helping you to optimize it. Google does offer a lot of support to help you optimize your platform and your campaign. Keep in mind that sometimes their recommendations are self-serving. They help you to spend more money, not necessarily help you to get more conversions. And that's been some of our experience. I believe they honestly do want to help you, but a lot of the recommendations do come out as self-serving and help them to increase your overall ad spend. So keep that in mind. But there is a service, again, if you reach out to their support, where you can get a Google AdWords specialist to come in and look at your ad campaigns and give you some tips and advice. And so that's something that is definitely worth looking at. Then you've got your campaigns, your ad groups, different ad extensions, videos, landing pages, keywords, audiences, demographics, targets, placements, settings, locations, and ad schedule, which is pretty critical. We'll talk about that in a second. Devices, advanced bidding, your change history, and then drafts and experiments. I'm not going to be able to get into every section in here, but I'm going to try to go through what I think are the most important sections so that you can build and optimize your first ad as effectively as you possibly can. There are also auction insights, again, it's a little bit more of an advanced feature. You're able to look at, I'm looking at the last 7 days results. There's absolutely no results because I haven't run a campaign before. You could change that. You can also go into your reporting, which is another really important tool that we'll cover at the end. You can do a search for their help, and they've got lots of great information in here, and I'll show you how to use the search and the help as we go through this. Then you've got your tools and settings, which again are really important. Probably we'll look at the keyword planner as an effective tool. We'll look at the audience manager. But again, there's a number of sections in here I encourage you to have a look at, play around with, and use their help to understand more about what they are. But certainly we will not be covering those in the limited time that we have today. So without further ado, let's create our very first campaign. So I'm going to go into campaigns here, and I'm going to click this nice blue button that says create new campaign. I'm going to click on new campaign, and you'll see that I'm presented with a number of different options. When I hover over each of these options, they will explain to you the different types of advertising that you can do with these options. This is an actual update compared to what Google AdWords was in the past to try and simplify the process for you. So you'll notice when I hover over some of these that I'm getting the exact same types of advertising that I can do. Search, display, shopping, and video. Search, display, shopping, and video. Search, display, shopping, and video. This is because they will optimize the campaign's default settings based on the types of activity that you're trying to generate, whether that's more sales, more leads, more website traffic, whatever the case might be. And then again, for product and brand consideration versus brand awareness, again, you're looking at the same thing, display versus video and display versus video, but it's going to be that same idea of, are you looking for a type of customer or type of user of Google that is more likely to convert to a sale? And they're using quite a complex artificial intelligence and a very extensive database to try and present your ad to the people that are more likely to purchase a product. So as we go down from left to right, we're going from more likely to customers who are more likely to purchase a product or service down to people who are less likely. So what will happen as we move down this is we're going to get more people that we present our ad to, but these people may not be as likely to purchase or be in a purchasing behavior at this exact moment. So many of you are going to be saying, well, why would I do anything other than sales? And the reason that you might do something other than sales is if you're looking at a remarketing program. And we will be going into this a little bit into detail a little bit later on. But a remarketing, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, is where your ad gets presented on a display network, other websites other than Google, where people who have visited your website will be remarketed your content with the hopes of, showing them your services, making them aware of your brand, and getting them as they move along this trajectory of the sales process. So for the sake of today, we're going to start with a sales campaign. And as we look into our sales campaign, we have those options that they told us about when we hovered over it. So we have a search, display, shopping, or video. So a search is going to show up in the Google search. As many of you have seen with Google, that's what you get at the very top of the page. It used to be on the right-hand side of the page years ago. It's very top of the page, the first few ads. Your display is what's going to show up on another website. So I think I've got a example of this that I did want to show you. So this is just a search for the 10 best camera drones. As most of you who know me know, I'm a drone freak. And you can see on the right-hand side, there's an advertisement for Microsoft Azure. This is actually part of Google's display network. So their ads are appearing on other platforms, and that's what can happen with the display network. Again, there are pros and cons of using this. We're going to start with just a search network. There's also a shopping tool. Again, this is a more advanced topic, and in fact doesn't work all that well here in Canada. Would only work if you've actually got a Google Shopping Merchant Services account, which again, we're not going to go in today. And then again, video, which would display on YouTube. So what we want to focus on is an ad that's going to show up on Google when people are doing a search. So we're going to choose search. So again, it's going to ask us to narrow down what we want to do. Are we looking to get people to our website? Are we looking for phone calls, shop visits, or app downloads? Now, most of us are probably looking to get more website visitors. There is a really interesting thing about phone calls. We'll come back to that later. But let's start with the most basic, which is getting people onto our website. Now it's going to ask us for our website. So I'll just put in my website here. And I'm going to now move on to the next phase. And the next phase is now giving us some general settings. So I want to give this a title. So this is my campaign title. It just helps you when you're looking at reporting to help you understand the different campaigns that you're running. So I'm just going to give this a demo financial services name. Now, the next option that we have are the different networks that we can choose from. We can choose the search network, and this is, as I said earlier, the actual results on the Google search engine. So in this case, we do want to choose that. Now, by default, they've selected the ad to appear on its display network. As I said, Google is trying to optimize, do their best to help you get results. In our experience, we do not like to advertise on the display network because what it does is it tends to increase our cost while decreasing our conversion rate. Because typically the display network, you're going to have a lower conversion rate. And as a result, you might spend more money without actually getting any more new customers. So I like to turn that off personally. Now, there are certain situations, again, when we talk about remarketing where that can become applicable. And if I have time, we'll go through that later today. Next, we're going to have the ability to target our audience. This is one of the great things about paid advertising is that you have the ability to do highly targeted audiences. And when we talk about remarketing, I'm going to show you some really interesting ways you can load your entire database, or you can just have people who've come to your website. You can do some really interesting things. So I was actually playing around with this earlier to see how narrowly that we could target this. So you can target by Canada, or you can enter a specific location. And I've got Yorkville entered here. They're telling me that that's limited reach, so I've got a much smaller group that I'm targeting if I do that. But that may very well be my intent, is to hyper focus this on a region. Most people are going to probably just choose either a city or a province or multiple provinces. Remember that the more specific that you are on targeting your exact customer, the higher your cost per click, but the higher your conversion and the lower the cost per conversion, which is really your target. Your target isn't to get as low a cost per click as possible. It's to get as low a cost per conversion as possible. So one of the things that's really interesting is you'll notice that I have the option to target, to exclude, or to say nearby. Most situations, you're going to obviously target a very specific region. But if there was a situation where you were only wanting to target specifically Ontario, specifically Toronto, I could target Toronto and add that in, but I could also enter another location like Mississauga, if I could spell. Oh, sorry. So I could target Mississauga and I could exclude that so that I will not get anyone from Mississauga. Now, this does not guarantee that you will only have people from Ontario because there's a whole bunch of issues, VPNs, lots of reasons that people might be targeted that are outside of Ontario. But the more that you can refine this, the better off that you're going to be. And you do have a fair bit of flexibility that you can do. You've even got a few more location options within here. Again, these are a little bit more advanced. And the one thing that I want to show you is that when you hover over the little question marks, you'll get a little quick tip, but you can also do the learn more. And there's lots of great content inside of the advertising platform, Google AdWords platform, that helps you to understand and how to use this tool. So what you'll probably want to do is start with a really basic campaign and then test various features as you learn and grow. So again, we're not going to go into the additional location options right now because we want to keep it simple. Again, you have the ability to now target in on your language. I have English by default. It's already recommending potentially French. If I was serving the Quebec market, I would obviously want to include that. I don't, so I'm going to leave it at the default, which is English. Now, audiences is where you get really interesting abilities to, again, hyper target. And we can hyper target by existing audience lists that we can build, and we'll try to cover that again today. I can target by the audience list that Google has built. So I could look at business financial services, business services, and again, it's brought these up based on the website that I put in at the beginning of this campaign. So it's pulling up stuff that it thinks might be relevant to my type of clients. So I could select one of these ideas or one of these topics. I could browse based on who they are, what they're actively researching or planning, how they've interacted with your business. So this might be, again, more audiences and lists. And then once you choose your audience list, which again, I'm just going to use the default for now, you would have the ability to choose the type of targeting that you want. So choosing targeting is going to limit you specifically to that target, whereas observation is going to observe those markets and how they interact with your ad and try to optimize based on the different ad groups that you've selected. So typically, if you know your audience really well, you want to go with the targeting. If you're trying to figure out who your audience is, you're going to go with the observation, which is their recommendation. But again, some of the things, as I said earlier, is their recommendations often are going to have you spending more money than what I would recommend, which is know your audience, know your customer, and then target the ads specifically to them. So in this case, it's actually irrelevant because I'm just using the defaults, so it doesn't really matter what choice I use. And the next is probably the topic that gets the most amount of feedback, questions, response. What should my budget be? And how should I be doing my bidding? These are the two biggest questions that people ask when they're looking at doing their very first Google AdWords campaign. And the hard part is the answer is it depends, and it depends on your business, the size of your business, how quickly you want to grow, what kind of budget you have to put towards this, a whole bunch of factors. I would say that there's no right and there's no wrong answer. What I do encourage people to do is start small. So you've got $100 to work with. So a nice budget I like to start with is $51. That gives you half of your budget to work with, or close to half of your budget. And the reason that I chose $51 is because I encourage people to use $10 increments plus $1. And that's because other people will have budgets that are probably in $10 increments. So this is going to give you the ability to hopefully outperform other people's ads and budgets and get your ads served and placed higher. So that is one little tip that I would give you. Just add $1 to whatever it is that your budget is going to be. And again, I like to go with around $51 a day if you've got that budget and that capability. Again, if you're starting out, what I would encourage you to do is, as opposed to do, $10 or $11 a day and then run it for 5 days, I'd encourage you to do the $51, do it in one day, see what the results were, see what is working, and then come back and retweak. Yes, there is going to be some ebbs and flows from one day of the week to the other, but I would encourage you to choose what would be the best day of the week for you normally, which the average is typically going to be on a Tuesday or a Thursday because there's no holidays, but that would be my recommendation. Now we've got, again, another advanced drop-down method here, or drop-down option, which is the delivery method. This is somewhat critical because if you do choose accelerated, it's going to spend your budget in a very, very different way. So what I mean by that is, if you choose standard and you have a budget of $51 a day and you've got an average cost per click of $51, using a standard, it's going to try and spread that over the entire course of the day. So if you get a lot of clicks right away, it will stop serving your ad until a little bit later on in the day, just to try and help spread that out. Whereas if you go with the accelerated method, it will, if you're getting a lot of clicks at the beginning of the day, it will just let you spend the entire budget right up front, which can be helpful, especially if you're trying to test something. And if it's working, you obviously want to, just put more money into it and, dump all that budget right away because it's working and it's being effective, and then add more budget to it as you go on. But for the first little while, let's start with just a standard, so you spread that at least over the day. As you get more advanced, you might want to play around with the accelerated. But the key thing I want to mention here is that if you are doing the accelerated method, that you are on top of this. Don't just set accelerated and log out of Google Ads and come back at the end of the day. No, you want to be monitoring and measuring it almost in real time. The next thing it's going to ask you is around your bidding strategy. Now, those options that we chose at the very beginning are helping us to determine our bidding strategy. So because we do sales, it's focused on conversions. There's a couple of other options. Again, you have clicks, impression share, conversion value. There's a few different options that are available to you, but by default, it's going to go with conversion. And again, I do want to point out here that if I select one of these different options and then click Learn More, it'll help me figure out a little bit more about what the different conversion strategies are and what smart bidding is. As I said earlier, this is a bidding platform. So it's now using artificial intelligence to help you maximize your return on that bidding. But you've got to understand what the different bidding platforms are and why you might want to do that. One of the things that pops up, you'll notice when I choose conversion value, is a target return on ad spend. So this is what you're trying to generate based on the amount of money that you're spending. In order for this to work, you have to have conversions set up. I'll try to cover that today, but again, that's a little bit more of an advanced topic. So for our basic first ad, we're just going to go on conversions. Within conversions, you can again set a target cost per ad or per action. So when we set our budget up here, this is the budget that we're going to spend per day, but it's not necessarily telling us what we're willing to spend per action or per click. Now, one of the things that you can do is you can set a target cost per action. Again, as you get more advanced, you may play around with this and decide on a price. Like, again, I would add that instead of $1, I'd add that 1 cent. Instead of 10 cents, I'd do 11 cents. But if you're not familiar with this and you haven't played around and you have no data to benchmark what a good target cost per action is, then just use their default. Um, so this will use the maximize conversions bid strategy, and then I guess there's some more information on how you can view that. You have some abilities to override that. Now, as you can see, we've even got more options that we can play around with around conversions and ad schedule. I'm going to skip this for now. I will come back to it because I think ad schedule is probably the most important thing that you should set up, because one of the things that you don't want to do when you're first testing and playing around with an ad is post an ad that is advertising to people when you or your staff don't have the ability to respond to new leads. Because one of the most important things for closing a conversion is being responsive. So you want to make sure that your ads are running at a time when you're going to be able to respond to your team. So for now, I'm going to skip that because you can skip over it, and I'll show you how to come back and modify that, because it is something that you might want to do as well after the fact. You can do it right here by just doing show more options, do your ad schedule, ad rotation, and conversions, okay? Of which this is the most important section. Now, I'm just checking my time. We're at about 1:34. We're more than halfway through the session, and I haven't even got to any other things, so I'll have to pick up the pace a little bit. I'm going to skip over ad extensions because I encourage you to take a look at what those are and learn more about those. The call extensions in particular, if you drive a lot of business through the telephone, can be really interesting. It does prompt people with a telephone number that they can call in the ad. And if they're on a mobile device, they can click on that. And then you'll be able to track conversions on phone calls, which I think is really interesting. But again, a bit more of an advanced topic, so I'm going to skip over that for now. Now that's good enough for us to save and continue. So that's our campaign set up. Now we're adding an ad group to our campaign. Because we're using the sort of wizard here, it's guiding us along the next part of our journey. So there's some different types of ad group, a standard versus dynamic. Dynamic is new. Again, advanced, if you want to learn more about it, go to more information. But for now, we're just going to focus on standard. We're going to give ourselves our ad group a name. So we're going to do a demo financial services. And this is where we're adding keywords. And this is probably one of the most important aspects of your ad campaign, second only to your content. So this is going to help you figure out who this ad is going to be targeted to. Now, as you can see, it's based on my website, started to pull up some keywords and giving me some monthly searches by those keywords. Now, this is a good start, and I might want to pick and choose keywords from this section here. But what I would actually encourage you, and again, this is probably the most important tip I can give you today, is if you're trying to target a certain keyword or phrase, what I would do is encourage you to go to Google, type in that phrase, get the results. Now here are our paid ads, which is where you're going to end up being. But I want you to go down to your organic ads and try and figure out who has got the best organic ad placement out there. So you can see some of these ones from bookkeeping services in Toronto and the GTA. You've got Ledgers Online, bookkeeping. I'm just going to grab this one because I like that one, and it's a high performing one. It's at the top of the fold. I'm going to grab their URL just by copying that. I'm going to go back to my ad, and instead of having my website in there, I'm going to paste their website in there. And I should get a whole different slew of keywords. These are good. They're not as great as I'd like to see. You know, you're getting some really, what you're able to tell from this are the number of searches, so the search volume. This will determine how quickly you spend your money, but also how many people are in that audience. The goal is to get a targeted, like there's a sweet spot. You don't want the search to be too big, but you don't want it to be too small. And this is something that you're going to play around with. For now, for the sake of speed, I'm just going to go ahead and just select most of these keywords in here, basically at random. Now, if you're doing this, you'd probably want to spend a little bit more effort than I am here. So I just selected all those keywords from that website. Now, some people might just leave here and go, okay, I've got my keywords, I'm good to go. But there's a really important section I want to point out to you, which is match types. Help control which searches can trigger your ads. So you can see that there's a broad reach, keyword, phrase match, and again, learn more if you want to understand the different types. There's basically two of the best performing types of searches that you want to do, which is a broad match, which can be done by adding a plus in front of the keyword that you have. A phrase match, which you get by encompassing the phrase in quotations. And by doing this, what you're going to do is better, more targeted ads. So I do encourage you to use either one of the two methods, a broad search, which is going to search for anything that's broadly associated with that type of keyword. So if I searched accountant Hamilton, the broad keyword accountant would come up. And now, whereas the phrase match is going to be looking for a match to that phrase, people who search accountant North York. So again, hard for me to go into the weeds on this, given that I'm already at 1 minute and 40. But I would encourage you, again, click the learn more, scroll down, learn all the different types. It tells you what a broad match is, what the benefits are. So use the tools, features, which are built into it to learn and become an expert on the product. So now I've come to the point where I'm now actually creating the ad. So I've created the campaign, I've created an ad group, and now I'm going to create the individual ad. And again, this isn't going to necessarily be a tutorial on how to create the best worded ad, which is definitely an art form. I'm just going to put in some information. So I want a final URL where this is going to actually direct people to. I'm going to want to put in a headline, quality bookkeeping. And there is 3 headline options. I can't spell quality, apparently. What would I do without this? So quality bookkeeping services, maybe fixed pricing. And I know fixed pricing is a bad term to use. We should use value pricing. But to the end customer, again, you want to be thinking of the end customer when you're putting this in. The end customer isn't thinking value pricing. They're thinking fixed price. I've got a locked in price. So if that's a selling feature for you, you want to put that in. You've got the option for a third headline. I like to keep my stuff on one line. So it does somewhat limit me from using the third line, particularly when it comes to mobile, but you do have that option available to you. And again, I would say, don't feel like you have to use every character in here. And maybe I'll just say start now, just to give you an example. So this is, as you can see, it's wrapped on this mobile advertisement. If I go up to see, I can go between the 2 different previews. So this is mobile, this is desktop. On desktop, it's not wrapped, so it looks okay on desktop, but more and more people are searching on mobile. So that's a decision you'll have to make for yourself, whether you want to do that. Now I have an option of display path, and I can change what shows up. So this is our target URL. This is where it's going to go, even though this is what's being displayed. So I might want to use the exact same final URL as my display URL, or I might want to say something different so that I can have it display so that, oh, they know this is for bookkeeping services. And then next, you're going to have your ability to put in your description. And again, you've got 2 lines here, to put in your description. Get started today with quality bookkeeping services at fixed rates. Okay, and then maybe a second line here. Now, the one thing I don't like, but it is just a fact, and this is a new feature, the second description line that you have, it just wraps it onto the other line. I would like it if it were a separate line, but it doesn't. So it just gives you do what you do best hire a professional for the rest. Okay. Now I have a couple of URL options here. Again, these are advanced. You're probably not going to get into them. If you have complex websites, you might want to have specific tracking templates. Most of you won't need that. In addition, if you have a custom mobile website, which again, most people don't have, they just have responsive websites, you might want to put in a custom URL for that. But again, these are advanced topics. We're going to skip them for now. So I'm going to hit save and continue. And we've got a policy violation. What did I do wrong here? Oh, I've got punctuation and symbols somewhere along the line. What did I do wrong? No, I know it'll let me do that. I love that it's not giving me, the demo gods are having fun with me today. Let's hope that that's what it is. I didn't like my exclamation mark. I'm pretty sure I've used exclamation marks in the past, but there we go. And that is my, sorry, that is my alarm to start opening up Q&A. I'm not ready to open up Q&A just yet because I got a lot more to show you. Fortunately, this is the problem with these live demos. If I go too slow, I don't have enough time to share with you all the pearls of wisdom that I have. So I'm going to continue on to my campaign because I want to show you some really important steps that we can do. So we've obviously added keywords to this topic. We've set a basic campaign. We've done the bare minimum to get a campaign up and running. I have a number of different tools that I can use in here. I've got a keyword planner that can help me get a bunch more keywords that I can add in to my keywords that I've already created, so I can add more keywords. Again, I can enter a URL that I wanted to use as an example. Let's use this one. Come on. Come on, demo gods. I can add in a couple if I wanted to. I'm just going to get started with that one. What's nice about this is you can download the keyword list, and that will give you a CSV that you can then copy and paste with. So again, this is a really nice little tool. It's giving you all the keywords in a nice spreadsheet for those accountants who love spreadsheets. It's telling you not only the search volume that we got in the default tool that we got earlier, but it's also telling us the top of page bids, the top of page bid at the high end. So you can figure out from these where you want to be as far as your budget and what you might want to spend for your various bids, and then come in and retarget. Because again, if you're choosing a really highly searched term, but it's really expensive, it's not going to be nearly as effective if you choose maybe a lower searched keyword that isn't as expensive. So this is a really great tool for you to come in and be able to pinpoint the keywords and then come in and choose those different options. I'm just going to highlight those, and I'm going to go back to my Google Ads campaign, and I'm going to go to my ad groups, and we can see that we've got my ads that I've already created there, and I can add keywords in here. So I could add in all the different keywords that I want to add in and paste. Again, I wish I had more time to go through this in more detail with you, but there's so many other things that I want to share around with you. One of the other ones that I want to do is how to adjust your ad schedule. So as I showed you, you could do it earlier on in the process, but if you want to come back and revise your ad schedule, which is quite probably one of the most common things that you might want to do as you're testing and playing around with it, is you search for ad schedule, come in here and choose the campaign that you want to modify, and then you can add your different schedules that you want to have. You can add days, Monday to Friday, from one period to the other, and you can play around with this and do your different testing to figure out what works for you. Obviously, most people are, like I said, want to at least start by doing it when they're in the office. Now, as you get more advanced, you're going to obviously want ads that run not only while you're in the office, but when your office is closed as well, because lots of people search when your offices are closed. But when you're just starting out and testing, I would encourage you to start with an ad campaign that is just focused on the time of day that you're running. So now I'm going to open up one quick poll here, which is, first of all, how's the pace? I want to know how I'm doing on the pace. Am I going too quickly? Am I going too slowly? I know I only have a short period of time, but do you want me spending that last 10 minutes on remarketing or on a search campaign? Just right. Oh, okay, that's great. The hard part for me is I don't have enough time to show you guys everything I want to show you, which is it's killing me right now because I want to show you like so many more things, and I'm just not going to have time to do it. Who knows? Maybe we can get Google or sorry Intuit to get us to do another session because I think there's so much more stuff here that I want to show you. What I was going to show you is how to do another campaign around both remarketing and video marketing. So first I'm going to just show you video marketing because I think it's the most important thing of the two. Remarketing, really important, but definitely more advanced. You have to know how to create an audience and then remarket to that audience. The key I would say with remarketing, which I'm not really going to cover today, is that you want to create an audience, which is usually people coming to your website or it could be a client list. And then you want to advertise to them only on the display network. So the goal is you're hitting them when they're on other sites and you're reminding them of your brand. But again, topic for another day. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another new campaign. This time I'm going to choose product and brand consideration because I'm obviously want to do a video. Now I have a couple of different options that we didn't see before, which is influence consideration or ad sequence. Ad sequence is something that's really, really interesting. It allows you to do an ad sequence where you have multiple videos that get shown to people and they have to see the first video first before they see the second and then the third. This is a great way to do sort of storytelling, which is what marketing is all about. But again, an advanced topic, so we're just going to go in with influence consideration. And now we're on to our next page. And again, you're going to notice that these pages look different. We're still going to give it a campaign name, demo video ad. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to set a budget again for this. The one thing is that you'll notice the difference is now, instead of a daily budget, they're giving you by default a campaign total. You may want to stick with the campaign total. Again, I like to do my dailies instead of daily budget. You get to choose whether you want to start that now or later on. Usually the default is to start as soon as possible, but you do have that option. Again, the delivery method, you've got that standard versus accelerated. I'm not going to explain that again. The bidding strategy is going to be different here. You've got a maximum cost per view, which is about the only strategy that you're going to get amongst most of the strategies. There is a maximum cost CPM for which isn't available to new ones, but it is available if you have an existing thing. Again, there's more information, but for now, let's just consider only the one default, which is maximum CPM. Again, we have the option to decide whether we want this on different networks. So on the YouTube search results, so it can appear in the search results, or it can appear in the ads. So where do you want this to appear on YouTube? So these ads are going not now in the Google search, but in YouTube. They can appear in the YouTube search, or they can appear in the YouTube video section. For me, and the most cost-effective right now are actually in the YouTube ads themselves. One of the great things that you have, it could be considered a positive or negative, is you've got that skip button. So you get 3 seconds of free play basically while the person is hovering their mouse over that skip button. And if they click that skip button, as soon as it appears, it doesn't count as a click, but yet you've been able to have your brand in front of them. So this helps really get your engagement up and your branding, improve your branding without actually increasing your budget. One of the other great things about YouTube is that any views that you do get, so anything over that 3-second skip ad threshold, is going to count as a view for your video. So if you're trying to grow your YouTube channel, one of the hard things a lot of people have is not having enough video views, not having enough subscribers. So by having a paid ad on YouTube, it's going to increase your number of video views, which will actually help you to get more subscribers. I know it's a funny thing, and there's lots of people out there that say numbers don't matter and it's, you know, vanity metrics. But what I can tell you is if people see a video with a lot of views, they assume that you've got credibility, and that's going to give you more weight, and people are going to want to subscribe to your content because they think you've got good things. So it's something really interesting to play around with. Again, you can choose your languages. By default, it's going to be all. I like to make sure it's only English. You can target your locations, which I do. Your inventory type is really interesting because one of the problems that's plagued YouTube advertising is the fact that your ad could show up on someone's channel that has potential defamatory content, and some of the major advertisers pulled all their budgets off YouTube because, you know, they were having their brands associated with hate speech and all this other stuff that they didn't like. So now you have the ability to decide whether you want to have limited inventory, which is going to be less awareness, less branding, but it's going to be a little bit more targeted, and you get some even more granular options for being able to decide where you want your content to appear, which is good. This is a new feature that they didn't have in there. Again, use the more, learn about the different options. But if branding is important to you and you don't want to be associated with hate speech, which I think most of us do, we're in a trust-based business, you want to be making sure that you're optimizing that. Now we're on to the ad group. One thing that's interesting here is the ad group is built right into the campaign process. It's all one and the same. So we'll give the ad group a name, demo video ad group. And we have some ability to do some targeting. Again, what gets really interesting here is not only can you target by basic demographics, male, female, age, marital status, you can actually start to do some targeting by appearing on different people's channels. So you actually have the ability, like I could make my ad appear on, sorry, that's going to be under placements. So this is again narrowing the target, but I can make my ad appear on certain YouTube channels. Like I could search for Hector Garcia. I know he's got an open channel. Come on, come on, I had it. So I could appear on Hector Garcia's channel. Most of you know him as probably the most prolific YouTuber in our community, and you can have your videos appear on Hector's channel. And Hector's doing this because he's monetizing his channel. If your ads appear on his channel, he's getting paid for those ads, which is why he does it. But this gives you the ability to have your content within Hector Garcia's channel and to get some credibility there. So you can do some really interesting things as far as the targeting on topics and keywords. Again, I really wish I had more time to go into this for you. The maximum CPV bid, so now you do have to set a budget for what is your cost per view. That's what a CPV is. So the cost per view is relatively cheap on YouTube. 11 cents should go a fair way. We're getting cost per views for ourselves between 2 to 4 cents per view. It's something that you're going to have to play around with. You have the ability to adjust your bid content or your bid adjustment by a certain percentage. Again, I just leave it blank for now. Start simple and just use the basics. And then, of course, for creating the ad, you're going to actually want to put in a URL of a YouTube ad that you've got. Let me just throw in YouTube URL for one of our things. I'm going to copy from my other screen here. So you're just pasting the URL of the YouTube ad itself. So again, now you're choosing in-stream ad versus video discovery ad. This is, I don't know why they do it the way they do it, but they do. This is sort of redundant to some of the top information. In-stream is going to be an ad that, as you hover over it, will tell you is actually in the video stream itself. So this is where you get that skip ad, which again is what I like to add, whereas discovery is going to be in the search platform. So it's showing up in the search. So I like to do in-stream ads. Those are the most effective from our perspective. So again, we can choose what we want our final destination URL to be. So maybe I want the exact same URL as what we did in our earlier ad. I want the display URL to be cpa4it.ca. And I could go ahead and just hit save and continue and my ad would be ready. I've also got this call to action option, which is interesting. You'll notice if I unclick this, your views disappear. So if you have a low view video, I sometimes encourage using that call to action button to somewhat hide that while you build those views. So if you use the call to action, you'll notice that when your ad displays, it appears a little bit different. This is specific to mobile. One thing I want to show you again is if we click on desktop, it's going to display this differently. So this is with the ad, this is without it. So without it, it just got the URL. With it, it does sort of cover the screen, and you have to keep that in mind with your video, where things, where your skip ad button is, where your call to action will be. But you can then modify that with a specific call to action. It is tight, learn more. So you don't have a ton of room. Learn more is technically 10, but it's really doesn't look very user-friendly in my opinion. Something smaller like start or go makes a little bit more sense, and then you can put learn more into the headline, which is going to appear where your company name was. And you can play around with that as you see fit. But there you go. Now you've created both a YouTube ad and your very first search ad. The next thing that I'm just going to spend the 0 minutes I have left covering is reporting. So we click up in here in the reports. I'll have no, sorry, stay here. And doesn't like my ad name. I'm going to leave for now because I'm out of time. So reports is a great tool. Again, there's some really helpful, I think there's even a guided tour on how to use it. You can create your own custom ones. They have default ones. I'm going to go into, let's just go paid versus organic. It doesn't really matter which one that you've got. One of the most important things is that you can schedule this so the report gets sent to you automatically at a certain date and time. You can obviously download this. You can save custom reports. So as you play around with this, you can do a little bit more customizing for your own individual needs. Like for example, if I click columns, I get more columns that I can add. So if I wanted to be able to modify this, whether it's by filters or by segments, like if I wanted to put in a segment, I can drag this, okay, campaign type, and I can drag this either to row or to columns, and it will display differently, allowing you to sort of customize this, filter this, and then once you do that, you would just save this as whatever you want, and then you've got a report that you could schedule to come out to you. This is really important for being able to monitor and measure the results of your ads that you're creating. But I know I've gone way, way, way over. I wanted to open this up for Q&A. I'm going to open this up for Q&A for those of you who stuck around. I'm going to start taking a look at the chats now. While I'm doing that, I'm going to do one more poll, which is probably the most important poll to me, which is, was this actually helpful to you? So I appreciate your feedback on that as I try to get into some of these questions and see what the Q&A has to say. I don't know whether you answered this already within your presentation, but someone is asking, how much do you spend money over time to test the different types of campaigns before you call it a valid test? As I said earlier, it's really like there's no right or wrong answer to this. I usually like to go with a budget of about $51. I'd like to test that for 2 weeks. For some people, that budget just isn't doable. But that's sort of like my ideal testing budget. I'm not saying it works for everybody, but it's a good place to start if you've got that budget. Like I said, you're going to get $100 for free by using that coupon. So that should at least get you 2 days for $2. And that will give you a feel for at least whether people are going to your website and whether they're bouncing. Because the biggest problem that you'll have is that you can get people over to your website. Like you could definitively get people over to your website with Google AdWords. But does that mean you're going to retain them as a customer? It's really important for you to know the sales cycle and the sales process and to know whether your website has the ability to convert. And this is something that takes time to work out. So some people may, by necessity, need to start with a smaller budget. The one thing that's really interesting about Google AdWords is typically if you can throw more money at it, it will definitively pay for itself. But the problem is it's going to be a cash flow issue because you're going to have to put in money now and those leads may not come and close for several months. So try to experiment with it. So I'm glad, looks like 90% of you found it very helpful. I'll just close that and share and try and see if there's other questions in here. I got one other question, I think. No, I think that is the only question. So hopefully, oh no, there's a bunch. So we were talking about video ads. How much would you spend time to test different types of campaigns before calling it a valid test? Covered that one. What size is the sweet spot for monthly searches? You know, the thing is, it's not necessarily about the size. You want to get as large a search as possible with as low a cost per click as possible. Because if you have a really large thing and it's really cheap, that's the ideal. I mean, you'll be able to just shovel money at that and get good cost per acquisition. That's rare these days. Unfortunately, high volume keywords are the most popular and therefore the most expensive. So it's depends on you, depends on your budget. And I apologize, I hate when people do this to me, but my answer for a lot of this is going to be, it depends, and you've got to test and you've got to play around. And I know everyone's just looking for me to say, spend X amount of dollars and you'll be raking in the money. And it doesn't work that way because there's so many variables. Like, what is your website like? Who's your audience? Who's your target market? What are your keywords? There's so many variables that you've got to play with and test. And this is why, again, I say, before you go with an agency, you need to play around with this and test it yourself, even if it's small amounts. Even if you can't do $51 a day, if you can only do $11 a day, it's a place to start. Are you sending the recorded webinar later? I'm going to try and tweet that out. Maybe Intuit, you can post that in the chat. I know there was a link last week. I think Rachel or Farida posted or shared with me, which was all the historic recordings. Farida, if you could post that into the chat or email it to me and I'll tweet it out or put it up on Facebook. For those of you who are not connected with me on social media, I'm very active on Twitter @WallCPA and @CPA4IT_CA. I'm also very active on Facebook. I encourage you to connect with me there. I do a Friday Night Live vlogcast with Hector Garcia and Michael Lee every Friday night at 11:30. So reach out, connect with me. Of course, LinkedIn, I'm always there too. So please do continue the conversation after this because I know I didn't get anywhere near enough time to cover everything. Maybe you should do another session so you can show all the features. Yeah, I might need 2 or 3. So we'll have to talk to Intuit. They've been very generous to sponsor this event and pay me for my time to be here. So Intuit, there's definitely some demand. Maybe I can talk with Martin and Rachel Clark about the demand for this. I know Martin's obviously a busy guy these days, covering for Jeff while he's away. But he's a genius when he comes to marketing and he knows how important this stuff is. So maybe he'll agree that it's worth another session. And we got some more votes for another session. And oh my God, there's more. Lots of questions, great sign. Thank you, you're welcome. Why to set a budget at $51 and not 50. 50.01 will get you above the fold. Fine. To me, it's another dollar. The point is to get you above the $50 that the average person is using. So 50.01, 50.50. Again, you're going to have to play around with this and figure out what works. One of the most important things that I didn't even cover, which is really, really critical, is that as much as your bidding is important, the quality score of your ads is really important. If you've got a poor quality score, meaning that the content that you put in your ad is not relevant to the content that you're taking people to, you'll get a poor quality score. If you're getting high bounce rates, you'll get a poor quality score, and that will derank you on the bidding process. So you don't want to fudge your ads. You want to do a really good job of making sure that the ads are aligned with the content and be measuring bounce rates and making sure that you're delivering content that is aligned with the ad and that it's effective. Let me see. How far would $51 last approximately? Depends on you saw some of the cost per keywords, and some of those are over $6. Some of them can be under $1. I think you're probably going to average in the $2 to $3 per click range. So you're not going to get a ton of clicks for that, right? It is just a test. Definitely bigger budgets go further. There's also other platforms that are more effective. It also depends whether you're doing a YouTube ad or a search ad. Search ads, most expensive, but most effective for getting you actual new clients. The YouTube is really great for branding and awareness, but you're going to be hitting people while they're searching for other content, maybe or maybe not at their moment of need. YouTube is better than, say, something like Facebook as far as moment of need, because you can then target into groups or channels like Hector's channel, and you know that people are going to Hector's channel to look for help with bookkeeping. So maybe this is a great place to advertise your bookkeeping services. Although unfortunately, Hector is in the US and probably most of you are like me are here in Canada. So you gotta, keep that in mind. And unfortunately, we don't really have a Hector Garcia for Canada yet. Maybe that's a challenge for you to become that Hector Garcia of Canada. But that's my 2 cents on the topic. Thanks, Andrew. You're most welcome. I serve a small town of 8,000 plus. Is $150 a budget a month okay for this range? Yeah, I would say it probably is, because you've got a small target market. But my question to you would be, why are you only servicing that $8,000 or 8,000 person small town? Why aren't you expanding outside of those geographic borders? And that's one of the big advantages that you're going to get is with Google AdWords, you now have the ability to start targeting other areas. I would almost exclude your local jurisdiction and start targeting other jurisdictions outside your things, because you probably have decent brand awareness within your own local community, because you probably got lots of customers in your local community and people know you and it's a small town. I'd almost exclude your local town and not spend any budget on that, but try and spend that budget on maybe the next town over, or a completely different area altogether. That would be my 2 cents on it, for whatever that might be worth. For $51 a day, does it spend the whole $51 on the day? Sometimes not. There are lots of situations where it will not spend your entire ad budget. If you can't get an audit, like if you've set your keywords, if you've chosen a bunch of keywords that don't have enough traffic and enough volume, it may not spend all your ads, but it's going to try to, right? I mean, the point of Google, they're making advertising revenue. They want you to spend it, so it's going to try to, and it's going to try and optimize for that. But it doesn't necessarily do it all the time, especially as it's learning, because it does sometimes take time to learn what's effective for your ads. It took a long time. It took a long time to get the webinars uploaded into it. Oh yes, you're right, Elaine. I think that's about all the other webinars which are now. Can you post the Facebook link where the video is posted? I will as soon as I have it. How exactly to get a hold of you on Facebook? Google Andrew Wall. or Facebook search Andrew Wall. I'm pretty easy to find. Of course, I'm logged in right now, so it's not going to be. So if I just type in Andrew. Now, there's two of me. I've actually heard this before. I don't know where this other one came from. It's an old one. It's not me. That is me. That is the actual me. You can see my Raptors Day. Go Raptors, go! Woo! What a celebration. So that's how to get a hold of me. And as I said, we have our Friday Night Live with accountants. This is a new channel for us. It's page is probably a couple weeks old, maybe a month or two at most. And we're doing really well with it. We've got a pretty good audience. So maybe I'll talk to the guys about doing a session about Google AdWords on there too. Google Ads, although it's meant to be a vlog cast, so doing a demo doesn't really work there, but we can talk high level. So food for thought. I've gone way over, and I still have like 40 of you guys with me. So thank you so much for staying long. I apologize for not keeping this to the time. I know it's a big faux pas when you're a public speaker not sticking to the time limit, but I really, there's so much here. I almost should have shelved some of it into the last week's session, or maybe get another session because we didn't even get to touch on or show you how to do remarketing or show you how to do your audiences. There is lots of great stuff here, and I know that can make it overwhelming when there's so much to learn. But what I want to take it back to is that you can create your first ad really easily. It may not be the best performing ad, but you're going to learn, you're going to test, you're going to see, are you getting people to your website? What happens with the people after they get to the website? So one of the other things that I would recommend, so there's reporting within the tool that we talked about. There's Google Analytics, which hopefully you're already using as well. And then there's Lucky Orange as well, which Lucky Orange, when you're testing, is probably the most important tool when you're testing search engine optimization, because one of the things that I can do with Lucky Orange, let's see if I can log in here and show you really quickly, because I think it's a bit Big Brother-ish, but it is really cool. So I've got a couple live visitors on my website, which is great. I could actually watch them live. So if I can go in here and I can see what someone is doing on my website, see when they're scrolling, etc., which is really interesting. But also I can go to my recordings and I can look at, okay, these people have found me on Google. So let's watch what they did. They were on my site 7 minutes, 4 page views. So let's put this in, I don't know, 5 times speed. And I'm actually watching what this person did. They were idle for 1 second. I hate idle. Skip idle activity. Well, this is interesting because I know they did more than one site. Yeah, there they are. They're switching pages now. Scrolling down, clicking on some stuff, corporation packages. Watched my video. So I can see exactly what they're doing. And I think when you're testing keywords, that is a really important piece of the puzzle. So it's like $10 a month. It's, to me, a no-brainer. And again, I'm way over. So thank you, everybody, for dialing in. I think maybe a few other questions that have dialed in. Thank you. You're welcome. Can't see my screen. Hopefully everyone else saw my screen. Oh, you know why? Sorry. Yeah, sorry guys. But Lucky Orange, I still had to pull up. I'm so sorry. You'll have to go in and have a look at it and play around with it. But well worth it. And on that note, I'm going to log out. Thanks, everybody, and have a great Tuesday afternoon, and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye for now.